Welcome to 5MC Plus. This is a part of the app that actually does a little bit more than just 5 minutes a day. And we like to share little messages, other things that you might want to grow in your faith and learn from. So if you're new to the faith or you're just checking us out, welcome to 5 Minute Church. Like we say, we're a church without walls, and we're thanking you guys for joining us. Today I want to talk a little bit about Luke chapter 12. And it kind of hit me when we were doing the school shopping thing. This is the time of year when all the kids, they have to get their school supplies, and they get the list from their teachers and download from the website, and they have all these different things that are that they have to get, and it's always chaos, right? And every kid has a different. I have 3 kids, and so each one of them has a different list. And you know, some want to go to this store, some want to go to this store. We end up just going to Walmart because it's the cheapest, and so you go there, but it's complete chaos. And you go to these aisles and they're completely packed because everybody's waiting to the last minute, and they have just stacks of folders and sales and carts, and it's complete chaos. And the kids know that the parents are buying, and so they're always just bagging, and they're just trying to fill their carts. And so I kind of like divide and conquer, and my wife will take one and I'll take another, and we'll kind of split them up, and they'll go get their supplies. And it's almost claustrophobic when I'm there, and I'm in these aisles, and I'm just kind of like, you know, going crazy from all the stimulus that's happening around, and wanting to buy this, wanting to buy that, and then there's kids whining over here, and so my daughter comes up to me and she starts this whole process of like whining, because normally I'm just the kind of guy that's like, yeah, just get the cheapest. What do you need it for? So we had this big debate about pencil boxes, and so she began to show me different pencil boxes because she wanted you know, something different than the rest of the kids have. And so she found this kind of cool one, and this is like a $3.97 pencil box, and I'm going, okay. And then there was this one for $2.97, has a cool little heart on it. Might be a little different, but then this is the 49-cent box, and this is the one that I would add to, and it comes in different colors, but we're talking 49 cents, okay? So I'm thinking, no brainer here. It's a pencil box. No one's gonna care, no one's gonna see it, and yet we had this big long discussion, and then she, in fact, even wanted to get something even better. There was one for $13.97, and it had a combination lock to your pencil box. And I wasn't even going to buy that one for illustration purposes, because I'm not spending $13.97 for an illustration or a pencil box, no matter if it did your homework for you. But why wasn't this good enough? And in fact, I started looking at this, why we started going through this process of new school supplies and what to pick and what not to pick. And it's kind of this whole process that the kids go through. And I started thinking that there's a little bit of Luke chapter 12 in all of us. And I'm going to read it. It says, Luke chapter 12, verse 13, someone in the crowd said to him, or Jesus, "Teacher, tell me, brother, to divide the inheritance. Tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." Jesus replied, "Man, who appointed me a judge or an arbitrator between you?" Then he said to them, "Watch out, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in the abundance of possessions." And he told them this parable. The ground of a certain rich man yielded an abundant harvest. He thought to himself, "What shall I do? I have no place to store my crops." Then he said, "This is what I'll do. I'll tear down my barns and I'll build bigger ones. And then I will store all my supplied grain. And I'll say to myself, you have plenty of grain laid up for many years. Take life easy. Eat, drink, and be merry." But God said to him, "You fool, this very night your life will be demanded from you. Then who will get what you have prepared for yourself? This is how it will be for whoever stores up things for themselves, but is not rich towards God." What an amazing story. I want to give a little background to the story. So Jesus is teaching. There's this huge crowd that shows up, and they're fighting in jockeying position, and Jesus begins to teach, and people are hanging on every word. And it's almost like rudely, this guy in the middle of nowhere, this guy interrupts Jesus. It's kind of like if I'm preaching or I'm teaching, and someone just stands up and completely almost changes the subject. And so this is the first time you have FaceTime with Jesus. He interrupts him, and he says, in the middle of the sermon, he says, "Jesus, hey, can you tell my brother to give me the inheritance? Can you fix my financial problem?" All this guy is stressing out. He's sitting there. He's going through maybe financial difficulties, and he's like, "My brother is got all this money he's supposed to give me, and Jesus, he'll help me fix it." So he's like, teacher, just help me out. Can you do that? Can you fix this situation? And I began to think, like, if you have one shot to talk to Jesus himself, what would it be? Would it be what this guy did? Would it be like, hey, Jesus, fix this thing in my life? Or and it's probably not even about money as much as just this heart issue that's going on. And he's saying, Jesus, come and fix this thing. And Jesus had the ability to fix it, and it's the most amazing thing. And it's like when we were school shopping, it always has to be fair. And when my kids would load up their carts, and they would then at the end look inside each other's cart, and they would look in there and they would go, well, how come he gets those pencils? Can I get those? And so then they go back and get their pencils and trade stuff out based upon, because there's a part of us that always wants everything to be fair. And that's the human nature. That's part of who we are. And so we want everything to be fair. And so here's a guy that is getting the short end of the stick in his family. And he's like, Jesus, you can help me make this right. Make this fair. And Jesus says the most incredible thing to this guy. He's like, who am I? Who made me judge over you? Now, I think this is pretty humorous because isn't Jesus God? And so Jesus is the judge. By definition, he would be the judge over all, and he is going to judge everyone. And so, yeah, he is qualified to make this kind of judgment, to make this injustice right. And so he says, who am I to be judge over you? And to figure out what's fair or what's not fair. And it's so interesting. And then he goes on to say, he says, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. And to be on our guard means that we're going to get bombarded by greed, especially living in this country, that it's part of who we are. Everything's motivated by greed and fear and things that process that whole process. And I began to think, as I started pushing this cart around the school supply aisle, and then it dawned on me that I look inside the cart and there's scissors in there. There's brand new scissors. And then I started looking back at all the years that I've bought in school supplies for my kids. And every year I buy brand new scissors. And in fact, I started pondering this. Why do I buy new scissors every year? I mean, let's be honest. If my kids are cutting so much that they need a new pair of scissors, that they're wearing them out, that they use them every year, and they wear them out, and they need a new pair every year because they're cutting so much, they're doing too much cutting in school. And maybe we should do more learning and less cutting, because I have a feeling that the scissors from last year are just fine. But in fact, they come up with new colors, they come up with new designs, and you want the latest scissors. You want, you don't want to be the only kid that has used school supplies or school supplies you used last year. And so you have to have new stuff. And so therefore, I didn't even think about it till this year that I buy these things every year and they don't wear out. So what is that? And I know that's a small thing, but he says, be on your guard, but it starts in those small things. This is be on your guard against greed. And it starts out so small, so innocent in the small things. And it's like a little pair of scissors, because the reality, it's not about the money, because these are like 59 cents at Walmart. So you can go out and get these every year and you go, well, it's just 59 cents. But what is the motivation behind us having to buy this every year? It's a thing called greed, what the Lord is talking about in this scripture. And he goes on to say this. He says, he tells about this story about this farmer who did really well. And uses this farm illustration, and he's like, he did awesome. And he had so much grain, he didn't even know what to do with it. So what are you going to do with all this extra grain? You're going to store it up. And so he built bigger barns to store his grain in. And as he built these things up, he stored all of it there, and he sat back and he's like, I've arrived. I can retire now. I can live off all this. I've done it. I've made it. And that's sort of in America what we're all working towards, is like this moment when we've just arrived and we have all this money and we have this security and yet there's two things I want to note here. That he's all alone in this story. It's just him with his stuff. The second thing is that it never dawns on him to actually give the stuff away. Instead, he says, I'm going to build bigger barns for myself, because the reality is we all look at ourselves first. And here's the scary part, is that Jesus comes and makes a point, and he goes right to the heart and he says, oh, you're such a fool, because tonight your very life, your health, because there's certain things that you cannot buy. My wife and I know some. There's a couple that's incredibly wealthy, and he made a comment one time and said, "Oh, there's nothing that I can't buy," and yet the response that my wife had was like, "Yeah, there is. There's love and there's happiness and there's also health. You can't buy your health. There are certain diseases that it doesn't matter how much money you have, that if you get those diseases, it won't matter." And Jesus says you're a fool because you're putting all your energy and your time and your effort and your focus on things that are temporary. And he says your very life will be passed from you. And when you come to those moments where even health and you're stripped down. I recently had a kidney stone, and actually I'll show it to you because I passed it. It's a really big stone. I'm pretty proud of it. My wife thinks it's gross, but I'm proud of it. Most painful thing I've ever had. And even my nurse said she's had 4 kids and kidney stones, and she said she'd take 4 kids. But I know some of you ladies out there would beg to differ on that. But I had this kidney stone, and when I was going through that pain, I tell you what, nothing else happened. And in fact, when I got this kidney stone, we were actually at the beach, and our family was hanging out there, and the kids are surfing and having a good time. And this is a time where we could just have family time, hanging out. We should be surfing, we should be having a good time, and not worrying about anything. And you know what? It didn't matter. None of that mattered because the pain was so intense that I had to go to the hospital, and that was the only thing that I was thinking about. And in fact, there are certain things in life that can just be taken from us at any instant, that none of that matters. And Jesus says all that stuff can be taken away. And so as we walk along here, it's not just about money he's talking. He's not talking about greed as money, because greed can be in things or about us or selfishness. And he's talking about a heart issue, a heart root issue. And so as I leave you with these 3 things to think about. Number 1 is that Jesus isn't a fixer. And so often I think we view him as just always coming in and wanting to fix things. Oh, just fix this, fix my marriage, fix my kid, fix my finances, fix my job, fix this relationship, fix all these things. And we come to him and we pray and we say, God, fix this, fix this, fix this. And I'm not minimizing your pain, and I'm not minimizing the things you go through there, but this story shows that Jesus is like, why should I fix this? Because there's something greater. There's a greater heart thing. There's something that we need to look at. That I believe that it's not about what we make it to be. It's about the eternal, not the temporary. And so when we look at Jesus and we ask him all these requests, we got to make sure that we're not asking to him to fix the temporary, because the reality is, the reason why he's coming back again, that I believe he's prepared a place for us in heaven, that we're going to be going and hanging out with him for eternity, is because this place is broken. And he fixed a way out of this place through the cross of Jesus Christ and belief in him. And so when you have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, it says if you believe in the Lord Jesus Christ, you'll be saved. If you confess your sins to him, he's faithful and just to forgive your sins and cleanse you from all unrighteousness. He says that I'm the way, the truth, and the life. Nobody comes to God except through me. And so he provided a way out, a fix out of this society, but he doesn't ever promise he's going to come and fix it, because it's broken because of sin. And so we've got to be very careful that we don't view Jesus as just this fix-it guy. Secondly, we need to be stopped being consumed by what's fair, by looking at each other's cart and seeing that he's got this case and I've got this one, but I really want this one, and we get caught up with all these little things and be consumed by what's fair. If you spend your life seeking justice, you'll never find peace. That's why he says, leave justice up to God, that he is the ultimate judge, because it's the fear that we have that drives the greed. It's a fear that my other sibling's going to get something better. It's fear that the kids at school are going to have the same case, or they're going to recognize this case from last year. It's fear that drives us in everything we do. And recently, even in the stock market, you're seeing the world economy, there's a lot of fear-based inside of greed, and greed and fear are married together. And so if you spend your life trying to rectify that, you will A, be alone, and B, you'll never find peace. So it isn't about Jesus being a fixer, and we need to stop being consumed by trying to figure out what's fair and what's not. And then number 3 is, who cares? The reality is it's just barns. It's just stuff. It's just material things that are going to perish. You're not taking them with. We get so tunnel vision. And the one shot that this dude had in front of Jesus, the one shot he could have asked any question of Jesus, and he asked him to fix his thing with this financial thing with his brother. Really? We have a shot every day to communicate and connect with Jesus. So what are we going to ask him? About temporal stuff that really at the end of the day doesn't matter. And he tells us not to be afraid, that he even takes care of the birds, and he feeds them, and he clothes them, and he takes care of all of his creation. He's going to take care of us. How much greater are we? He says later in this passage. So who cares? He says, you guys are fools. Because the reality is the scissors aren't going to wear out. The scissors won't wear out. It's okay to use the ones that you got. And what God has given you, in fact, I've got a pair of scissors here in my office that I have used for years and years and years. And you know what? They still cut. They still do the job. I don't need to replace them. And we need to stop thinking that we don't have what God, we don't have enough, or we haven't arrived yet. And you know what? Maybe we have. Maybe God has given you everything you need. It's just a matter of us being content and using what we have. And I think that's the crux of this, because scissors are meant to be used. It's not meant to continue to buy and to store up and to collect. They're meant to be used. And maybe if God blesses you with another pair of scissors, maybe there's somebody that doesn't have one that you could actually give it to, because you have one that works just fine. And I think that's the secret of faith. Faith is meant to be lived. It's meant to be used. And so it's no good for us to just sit and try to consume even things of the faith, even favor of God. That we could just be a consumer instead of saying, God, you've given me everything I need. The cross paid for my sin. It's fixed a way out of here. And I'm just going to use what I got. And if he chooses to bless with more, then that's a way that we can bless other people. And I think it's that simple. And so as 5 Minute Church grows and our app is growing and you users are all across the world now, we're so excited what God is doing. And yet when I look and I'm like, what do people want to say about 5 Minute Church? And some people, we got critics to say, well, we need more than 5 minutes, and it's, we need personal interaction and all those things. But what I don't want people to say is it's about money, it's about success, it's about programs, it's about buildings, it's a number of app users. Look at how many app users we have. And none of that matters, because what really matters is maybe it helped one person get out of bed that day. Maybe the app encouraged one person that was struggling and needing some help. Maybe it's the one person that found the Lord through this, found a relationship with Jesus Christ. Maybe it's just somebody found hope. I want people to look at this and say, well, wow, that was an app that actually made a difference in people's life. And that's really our heartbeat. And I pray that that's your heartbeat too. And I pray that whatever God has given you, he wants you to use it. And he wants you to use it for his kingdom. And not be so concerned with trying to get the next and the best and latest thing, but be content with what we have. I really think that's the crux of Luke chapter 12. God bless you guys. We'll be praying for you. If you need any help, please fill out the little form that's on our app. We'd love to pray with you. We'd love to be a part of your life, how we can encourage you and bless you. So go in peace and have an awesome day. Thanks. Jesus' word we're receiving, confessing our sin.